All right, welcome back everyone. Thank you. This is Robert at Custodian File. We're going to do something different today. As I mentioned in my last post, I was going to try to address the issue of warp drive and basically, in my opinion, of course, how I think it actually works. Not so much a generic concept, but actually technically how to build one. So I've given it a lot of thought, a lot of focus. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm sure some of you are going to go, Robert, you don't have a clue. And some of you might really just be impressed also. But I think this is logically the most correct answer for now. No, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm a clinical pharmacist. But I do, once I put my mind on something, I really give it a lot of energy and a lot of focus. So hear me out. So what we're looking at here, this Venturi tube, the warp drive principle has nothing to do with fluids or air flow, but the principle is very similar. We have a flow of a matrix flow on the left. It goes through a narrow tube and it enters on the right. So basically what's going on there's an increase in velocity. There's a massive increase in velocity from left to right when it goes through that narrow tube. And that's what's important here. This is where I'm going on this warp drive. If you know a little bit about the fluid flows, you'll understand that the velocity of fluid has to increase in order for essentially the volume to be equal on both sides. Okay, also this theory is based on the premise that all matter in the universe is defaulted at the speed of light. Electron spin, all matter, all matrix. It's based on the speed of light, because that's where I'm going with this. All right, let's go to the next diagram, which is actually a pencil UFO. Okay, super. Here's one of the better photos I found on the internet of one of these cigar pencil-like UFOs. And again, all this is just my theory here. I haven't read this anywhere. I don't know if somebody's already published this. I don't even know if this is technically top secret government research. Again, it's just based on logic and looking and trying to figure things out. So look at this UFO, how the center of it has a bottleneck choke point, you might say. So you can probably, some of you are seeing where I'm going with this, but essentially if UFOs, some of them are designed like this, the principle, I think what's going on, there's a massive amount of energy, electricity, electrons, flowing from the back to the front. Now, what happens here, because of that massive flow, the flow of electrons right there at the choke point, the flow has to increase. It has to in order for the amount of electrons. And then once the electrons get to the front of the pencil UFO, it cycles back. So it's essentially, for what it's worth, DC current, but we don't know for sure. But the energy is being cycled back. So the whole point is that energy is flowing from the back to the front of the ship, and when it reaches that choke point, the electrons have to accelerate by a factor of 100, 1,000, in order to keep an equilibrium. And let me show you the Alcubierre warp field and what I think is going on here. Okay, here's the Dr. Miguel Alcubierre, physicist in Mexico. I think he came up with this like 20 years ago, and I really like it. And I'm sure you've seen this before. So the warp field itself depicts that the warp drive is creating a collapse in the space-time continuum. So the ships or the UFOs, they are following. They are falling into space. They are not traveling linear. because we never get anywhere. You couldn't go 400 or 500 light years. You couldn't get anywhere. So obviously you got to find a faster way. So my point is, if energy is flowing to the front of the ship, that point A is the choke point, the narrowing. The electrons go through that little point. It creates rapid velocity of energy. And remember, the ship is in a universe, by default, everything is set at the speed of light. So if you now have energy, if you have electrons traveling faster at the speed of light, because of that choke point, it's going to disrupt the space-time continuum around it, and you're going to open up a wormhole. This is what I think is going on. And then energy gets cycled back, and then of course the whole thing is, how long do you leave it on? How do you know how far to travel? But the whole point is, how do you open a wormhole? What is actually going on? I think this is what it's doing. I don't think it has to be that complicated. The complicated part, of course, is coming up with a superconductor metamaterials that's not going to vaporize when you're putting hundreds of millions of volts through a very narrow point. Probably that very narrow point is literally an inch in diameter for a massive UFO, you know, a massive, say a 30, 40-foot ship. Probably its portal point is like an inch, and it causes the collapse of the space-time continuum, which creates an opening. So I think this is how it's being done. If I'm correct, I hope I don't get the attention of any time travel police for violating any time travel laws. I did not get this information from the future. It's just something I've thought of. And that's the best of my ability on how to explain it here. I hope somehow I've conveyed the concept correctly. Please let me know what you think here. Share it with me. I want to get some feedback. That's the only way I'm going to have a better understanding, is hearing from you. Who knows, maybe this was figured out 75 years ago, and they have much better advanced theories. But and let me know. It's kind of exciting. I like to put it out there. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If maybe I'm right, then that's fine. That's fine also. All right, that will be it for this episode here. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment. I do want to hear from you. And until the next video, stay safe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.